GodAstrotheology. Now, I gotta say right up front, this is what you'd call a fringe theory. It's definitely not something most mainstream historians or theologians are on board with. But the source material we're digging into today, it makes a really interesting case for this deep symbolic link between ancient religions and, you guessed it, astronomy.
And it all kind of starts with this simple but powerful bit of wordplay. Son of God versus Son of God. The whole idea we're exploring today suggests that this little switch is the key to unlocking a totally different way of looking at these sacred stories.
All right, so let's get into the first big idea here. The central argument is that the main character in the Christian story is actually a personification of the sun.
So according to this theory, when you hear titles like Light of the World or Risen Savior, they aren't meant to be just, symbolic. They're supposedly literal descriptions of the sun. I mean, think about it. It rises every single morning, bringing light to the entire world. And without its energy, well, nothing here could survive. So from that perspective, the source we're looking at basically says the sun is, in a very real way, our savior.
Okay, and this is where it gets really visual, where the theory tries to connect things you see every day to these famous miracles. So, the sun coming up after the darkness of night, well, that's seen as rising from the dead. What about that shimmering reflection on the water when the sun is setting? That's interpreted as walking on water. And you know how the sun sometimes peeks through the clouds at sunrise or sunset? Yup, you guessed it. The theory points to that as the origin of coming back on a cloud.
Okay, so let's add another layer to this. Because according to this idea, the sun doesn't travel through the sky alone. It has followers. And the key number here, it's 12. This number 12 is absolutely everywhere in the biblical narrative, and the source material we're looking at says, hey, that is no coincidence.
The argument goes like this. The 12 apostles are actually symbols for the 12 constellations of the Zodiac. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, the whole gang. The sun travels with these constellations on its year-long trip across the sky. So the story, when you look at it this way, becomes the sun and its 12 followers, literally moving through the heavens.
So if the characters are stars and planets, what about the big events in the stories? Following that same logic, it kind of makes you wonder, could the holy days actually be astronomical events?
Okay, so check out this sequence. It really lays out the astronomical explanation for some major spring holidays. So step 1, in the winter, the sun is at its lowest point in the sky. It's cold, it's dark, so metaphorically, it's dead. Then step 2, the spring equinox arrives, and the sun passes over the equator heading north. And then step 3, it's spring. The sun is resurrected, it's higher in the sky, and it's bringing new life to the northern hemisphere.
And this is where they connect it directly to two huge holidays. Passover? Well, that's interpreted as the sun passing over the equator. And Easter? The argument is that it's a celebration of the East Star. Get it? Easter? The sun being resurrected as it rises higher in the east, bringing that warmth and life back to the world. And the source material points to other parallels too, like take the marriage feast of Cana. It gets reinterpreted as this beautiful allegory for spring. So in this version, it's not a literal wedding. Instead, you have Mother Earth marrying the sun. And what's the miracle? The sun turns water into wine by, drawing up moisture from the earth, rain, to grow the grapes that eventually become wine. It's a neat little metaphor, right?
But it's not all about the sun. According to this theory, other celestial bodies get in on the action too. Take Lucifer, for instance. The source claims that whole story actually starts with the planet Venus. I mean, the name itself, Lucifer, it's just Latin for light bringer. And guess what? That was the original Roman name for Venus. The morning star, the bright one you see right before the sun comes up.
And the source says there's a clue to this Venus connection hiding in plain sight in some really prominent modern symbols.
So the argument here is that ancient Arabic cultures had two main things they associated with Venus. 1, its color was green, and 2,
they always depicted it as a crescent, not a full circle. So what the source suggests is that these ancient observations are the direct origin of the green flags and the crescent and star symbols you see all throughout the Islamic world today.
All right, so let's tie all this together. What's the big takeaway when you put all these pieces on the table? Well, the conclusion from the source material is pretty bold. It says that these stories, they were never meant to be taken as literal history. Instead, they're supposed to be this grand, epic metaphor for the movements of the heavens. Specifically, it's the story of the sun and its year-long journey through those 12 houses of the Zodiac. And that leaves us with a really provocative question to chew on. What happens when we start looking at these ancient stories not just as history or as stories of faith, but as cosmic maps? What if they're actually preserving ancient astronomical wisdom passed down through the generations in the form of these incredible tales?